School lockdowns are meant to protect students. But sometimes, nobody knows what's actually happening outside. Story 1. The intercom crackled to life with a sound like grinding teeth before the voice spoke. It wasn't Principal Miller. The voice was flat, distorted, and possessed a rhythmic cadence that felt entirely too deliberate. Protocol Delta. Lights off. Doors locked. Silence is mandatory. The architecture is shifting. Mr. Henderson, our history teacher, didn't hesitate. He killed the fluorescent lights, plunging the room into a bruised, gray twilight. He moved to the door, his hands trembling as he engaged the heavy deadbolt. We didn't need to be told to get under the desks. We had practiced this since kindergarten, but we had never practiced for this silence. Usually, a lockdown is a cacophony of hushed whispers and frantic texting. Today, the air felt thick, as if the room had been vacuum sealed. My phone vibrated against the linoleum. A text from my mother. "Where are you? They won't let me near the building. Keep your head down." I turned my phone to silent, but the screen flickered. A notification appeared from the school's internal app. Faculty update. The hallways are no longer linear. I peered through the narrow sliver of the door's window. The hallway outside looked wrong. The lockers seemed to stretch into an impossible, cavernous distance, and the floor tile pattern spiraled in ways that made my inner ear ache. There was no sound of shouting, no sirens, no footsteps, just a low, subsonic thrum that vibrated in the marrow of my bones. "Mr. Henderson?" someone whispered. "Don't," he hissed. He was pressed against the wall, staring at the classroom door as if he expected it to dissolve. Then the intercom spoke again. It wasn't a message this time. It was a recording of my own voice, perfectly replicated. "I'm scared, Mom. Please pick me up." I froze. I hadn't said that out loud. I hadn't even finished typing it. The doorknob turned. Slowly. It wasn't the frantic rattling of an intruder, but the methodical, curious exploration of something testing the limits of the room. The metal groaned, metal against metal, as the door frame began to warp inward, the wood splintering like dry bone. Then, the light beneath the door, the light from the hallway, turned a color I didn't have a name for. It wasn't quite ultraviolet, but it burned my eyes, casting long, wrong-angled shadows that detached themselves from our desks and began to crawl toward the back wall. Mr. Henderson grabbed a metal chair, his knuckles white. He wasn't looking at the door anymore. He was looking at the ceiling, where the acoustic tiles were beginning to bow, dripping a thick, translucent fluid that tasted of ozone. "It isn't a drill," he whispered, his voice cracking. "It's a harvest." The intercom clicked one last time. "The shapes are hungry. Remain in your modules. The geography will reconfigure in 3 minutes." I crawled further into the dark, closing my eyes, praying that when I opened them, the school would be a school again, and not a cage for things that didn't belong to this world. Story 2. The announcement didn't chime. It didn't crackle with the familiar garbled static of the principal's office. It simply clicked on, a sudden, wet inhalation over the intercom that silenced 30 sophomores mid-sentence. "Lockdown," a voice whispered. It wasn't a teacher. It sounded like an imitation of our history instructor, but the pitch was wrong, flat, synthesized, and layered with the buzzing of 1,000 trapped flies. "Do not look at the windows. Do not look at the clock. If you see movement in the hallway, close your eyes and hum until the smell of ozone passes." Mr. Halloway, who had been lecturing on the Industrial Revolution, froze. He looked at the intercom, then at us, his face pale as parchment. He didn't lock the door. He simply moved to the light switch and flicked it off, plunging the room into a deep, claustrophobic gray. We scrambled under our desks. Silence descended. Not a peaceful silence, but a heavy, pressurized weight that made my ears ache. "Is this a drill?" Sarah whispered from the desk next to mine. Her knuckles were white, gripping her pencil so hard it snapped. "Shut up," I hissed. Then the hallway began to breathe. It wasn't footsteps. It was a rhythmic, sliding sound, like sandpaper dragging against linoleum. It paused outside our door. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird in a cage. Through the sliver of space between the door and the floor, I saw a shadow. It wasn't the shadow of a person. It was too long, too fluid, pooling like spilled ink that refused to stay still. The intercom clicked again. "The lesson is perception. Do not perceive the hallway. If you perceive it, it perceives you." A girl in the back of the room started to sob, a jagged hiccuping sound. Mr. Halloway clamped a hand over his own mouth, his eyes bulging as he stared at the door. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing my palms against my ears, but I couldn't block out the sound of the handle. The metal groaned. It didn't turn. It began to warp, the steel twisting like warm wax, turning liquid under the pressure of something impossible on the other side. I remembered the instruction, hum. The room began to vibrate. Low, discordant notes emerged from the darkness. First Mr. Halloway, then Sarah, then me. We hummed until our throats burned, a desperate, droning chorus designed to drown out the reality bleeding through the door. The sliding sound stopped. The smell hit us then. Intense, sharp ozone, like a lightning strike trapped in a jar. Minutes stretched into years. The door remained warped, a twisted piece of sculpture. Eventually, the hum died down, leaving us in a hollow, terrifying stillness. "Is it gone?" Sarah breathed. Before anyone could answer, the intercom clicked. The voice was back, sounding closer now, as if it were standing right behind me. "Lesson over. You may look now." Nobody moved. We didn't dare. We just sat in the dark, waiting for the bell that we knew would never ring.